Could Bill Belichick be returning to the National Football League sooner than expected? And why I believe the frontrunner for Bill Belichick is the New York Giants, and why ultimately I think it would be a bad decision. But we'll break down why Bill Belichick could be the Giants coach in 2026 and much more coming up on this episode of Rich Sports Talk. Welcome into Rich Sports Talk. I'm your host, Nolan Ridge. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest content. In the live stream, make sure to reach out with your questions. Super Chat will jump to the front of the line. If you want to take us on the go, we are available wherever podcasts are streaming. So, despite Bill Belichick coming out a couple weeks ago when asked about the rumors linked to the New York Giants, he said, "I have no interest right now. I'm staying at UNC." But a lot of things can change in the National Football League. And from all accounts, it appears that at least two teams are interested in why I think the Giants are the front runner. So let's get right into it. So Josina Anderson, who covers the NFL and does a really great job, had a big tweet hours ago involving Bill Belichick. This is what Josina Anderson had to say, and I do think it is very important, and she has been very good at going and finding some of these stories, especially behind the scenes. According to Josina Anderson, I'm told at least two NFL teams are still expected to have interest in talking to Bill Belichick. The behind the scenes, at the very least, about the coaching carousel. A third team could enter the mix with desires to talk, particularly if one specific personnel change is made under ownership, the source adds. Side note, there's more to the story of why Bill Belichick did not end up with head coaching another NFL team a couple seasons ago, with his own desires and preferences regarding workplace dynamics playing more into a part of it. I think it has been discussed, publicly known, or given real credence. At any rate, Belichick still has deep respect from a number of owners across the league, and that is what matters. There is a lot to take from that statement. And I think it is very important. And I do think that she is doing a great job. And I do think there are key things with how this is worded. There are at least two teams that are interested. I think that they are the Giants and the Dolphins. Now, again, this is my speculation because, for one hand, the Giants have already fired their head coach and this week fired their DC. And the other one is the Dolphins, where Mike McDaniel is pretty much a dead man walking. The question is, who's the third team? So let's break it down a little bit and why I think the Giants are the front runner for Bill Belichick and why I think they are going to be interested. Let's first start with the hot seat, right? We just talked Mike McDaniel. I think he's gone. Now, the Dolphins don't have a GM. Why I think the Dolphins could be in the mix and might be appealing to Bill Belichick, and why Belichick might take it is if they let him run personnel, if they give him a fat check, if he gets to work in Miami, no state income tax, and turn around the Dolphins, and as an added bonus, he gets to play the Jets twice a year and the Patriots. And we all know how much he loved to embarrass the Jets. I guarantee you he would love to embarrass the Patriots. But there's a problem with the Dolphins. They kind of don't really have a quarterback. They're going to have to look to find one. And in that division, you have to play Drake May and Josh Allen twice a year. So the Dolphins, I think, are a bit of a wild card. But let's look at the other hot seat. These are realistically the only other coach. Now, again, law of averages, 6 or 7 will be fired. But let's look at, I think, the hot seat. Zach Taylor. I don't think there's any shot with the Bengals. Even people will say, well, Joe Burrow's there. He has a great quarterback. It might be a good fit because he can improve the defense. And, you know, from the outside looking in, it probably should be the best fit. But we know the Bengals are cheap. We know the Bengals don't like to move around in the draft. They're very stagnant. They don't like to be aggressive. And I don't think that Bill Belichick is going to be able to make a lot of decisions there because the Bengals don't like making decisions. Jonathan Gannon with the Cardinals. I don't think he's going to go there again. No quarterback. The last team is a bit of a surprise. And again, I don't know if they'd go this route because they just hired another 70-year-old coach, which is the Raiders with Pete Carroll with how bad it's going. But the reason I paused with the Raiders was one of the things she said. What did Josina Anderson say? A third team could enter the mix with desires to talk, particularly if one specific personnel chain is made under ownership. Who's a part-time owner of the Raiders? Oh, that's right. It's Tom Brady. So if the Raiders decide to maybe get Tom Brady out of the mix, again, I don't know how feasible that is. I think that that's how Bill Belichick would talk, because I don't think Tom Brady is going to want Bill Belichick near the Raiders. But that's why I looked at that one and said the third team that could enter the mix is if a personnel change is made under ownership. Now, some people might say it's the Giants, which it could be, with Joe Schoen as the GM. But I feel like these rumors are coming out now, and I always look at timing. Why is this coming out? I think it is clear that the Belichick camp wants to drive that there is interest in Belichick. And let's also look at it too. Belichick can say until he's blue in the face, he wants to be a college coach. He wants to be there, but he has not looked happy at UNC. He's 4-7 in the bottom of the ACC this year. He's lost a lot of recruit. It seems like the boosters, the fans, it's not a comfortable relationship. And never forget the contract. The contract was designed to basically leave whenever he wanted and put basically his son in charge of the program. But the big thing I look at too is the other side note to Belichick, which Josina Anderson said, and I've been saying this before, and why I think the Giants are ultimately going to be the front runner for Belichick, and why I think there's a strong chance Bill Belichick is the coach of the Giants in 2026. Her side note: with his own desires and preferences regarding workplace dynamics playing more into a part of it than I think has been discussed publicly or given real credence. At any rate, Belichick has deep respect from a number of owners across the league. I read that and I go, okay, John Mara. John Mara, we know how much he respects Bill Belichick. We know how much the Giants adore Bill Belichick. But I look at the workplace dynamics. Bill Belichick has made it abundantly clear over the last decade. He wants to work with people that are comfortable. He doesn't necessarily want the best football people around him. He doesn't want the most innovative. He wants guys he likes working with and that are easy to work with. And when I look at the Giants have been this traditionalist organization, and they keep going to the Bill Belichick coaching tree. Just look at all their last coaches. They've all had some connection to either Bill Parcells or Bill Belichick. And I keep saying this over and over again on this channel. Bill Belichick, to me, can say all the right things to this ownership group. Because one thing that is really not being talked about here is John Mara's health. They have basically stated that he cannot go to road games anymore because of his health. Do you really think he wants to take a shot on an unproven head coach, that he's going to look for another first-time OC or DC becoming a head coach? And as this thing continues to spiral, I really don't think Joe Schoen should have any say in who is hired. And I could see Belichick even saying, I can work with Joe Schoen for a bit. I like the defensive pieces he's brought in. And I look at your defensive struggles. I can fix the defense. I'm a great defensive head coach. I look at the pieces on this team. I can make this a top 10 defense very easy. And I know how to win and close out ball games. I just feel like Bill Belichick could be the ultimate salesperson for the Giants. I want to finish here. I want to turn this team around quickly, and I want to win quickly. And the other big thing, too, is you have the quarterback. I don't have to draft someone. I don't have to go and look for the next rookie quarterback. He's already here. Now, again, I would be wary because I look at the development of the rookie quarterbacks under Belichick, not named Tom Brady. It hasn't been great. But I just look at this and I just say the timing of this, because news like this comes out when people want it to come out. This comes out the same week, merely not even 48 hours after the Giants, for the fifth time this season, blew a fourth quarter lead. Less than 24 hours after they fired their DC. where they fired their DC and the head coach. And it appears like they are going in the wrong direction. They're going to have a top pick in the upcoming draft. And what's the big thing? It's that the defense, with all that talent, cannot close games. You don't think Bill Belichick knows about the Giant organization? He has been around it. He always talks about how much he respects the Giants organization, how much he enjoyed his time there as a defensive coordinator. You don't think he can be a great salesman for this pitch? Because unlike all the other jobs that could come open, Bill Belichick does not have ties to the organization. He does not have a track record with those organizations. And more importantly, he hasn't helped those organizations win Super Bowls. The Giants don't win that first Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills if not for Bill Belichick's defense. Let's just be frankly honest. But I just read what Josina Anderson said. And it's been what I've been saying for everyone about Bill Belichick. I really believe that at the very least, he's going to get interviewed by the Giants. And I just get this feeling because John Mara has been a guy that has not been patient. People want to talk about the Jets having a quick trigger finger. The Giants have gone through more head coaches in the last 10 years than the New York Jets. Say what you will about Woody Johnson, but sometimes he at least gave Robert Saleh time. He gave Joe Douglas nearly 100 games as a GM. The Giants have not been patient. And if Bill Belichick says he can work with Joe Schoen or he wants to take over personnel, it's just a lot of things he can use. He knows what the Giants value. He knows the traditions of the Giants. And it would be a great story. He goes and finishes his career in the place it started. But if I'm the Giants, I worry about this because, yes, I understand he's been a successful head coach. Yes, I understand he's won 6 Lombardis, but he hasn't won them without number 12. And when you look at Bill Belichick, whether it was with the Cleveland Browns as the head coach, whether it was the Patriots before Tom Brady, or the Patriots after Tom Brady. And the other big thing is the big elephant in the room. Or should I say the girlfriend in the room? Because that's going to be, I think, the ultimate thing Belichick has to work around. Because as much as the Giants want to be relevant, as great as this would be for publicity, they also understand, too, that they probably don't want all the publicity that has come with Jordan. And I'm very curious to see how that is going to affect these discussions because I just am very curious how it's going to come up in conversations, how it's going to be addressed in conversations, because I'm telling you this, if Belichick, let's say, gets the Giants job, and in week 2 or week 3, we see Jordan down on the sideline at some point, you know that's going to be splashed over every single back page in New York. And the Giants, again, they say they don't want to be the headline, but I'm just very curious to see how that all plays out. And it just lines up with so many things I keep saying. The Giants don't like to work outside their family tree. They like to keep this history. They like to keep it all within the family. And I think that they've tried now multiple coaches, unproven guys that have no track record. And to this is something they could sell to their fan base saying, look, with Belichick, we know he can have a great defense. Even at the end of New England, the defense was great. We have great defensive personnel. If he can snap that defense into shape, it's going to be a competitive team. But I just look at everything. And it said 2 teams are interested. The third with potential personnel. Maybe the third is the Giants with Joe Schoen. We don't know. But I just look at what 2 teams are realistically right now looking for head coaches. Because, again, Zach Taylor hasn't been fired. Jonathan Gannon hasn't been fired. I think Pete Carroll's more of an outlier. But Mike McDaniel feels like a goner. And the Giants have already moved off of their head coach. So I look at those as the 2 teams that are going to have new head coaches. So it just, to me, makes sense. Because all the other ones I mentioned that could potentially come open, they don't seem like great fits. The Dolphins one is interesting because it involves getting to play the Patriots and the Jets twice a year. But I just get the feeling that Belichick also likes being comfortable. And the Giants, it just feels like it's like going home for him. And if he can pick the coaching and pick the personnel or have a say in the personnel, and maybe even Belichick could keep Joe Shane for a year. What if, let's just say, the first year they win more games, they're competing for a playoff spot, but they don't feel like they filled out enough holes in the roster? Belichick can easily just say, look, I don't think Joe Shane's going to be able to cut it, but I know X, Y, or Z who can take that position and get us over the hump. You don't think Giants ownership would bend the knee to Bill Belichick to make that ultimate decision? So at the end of the day, I do think it is very important. And again, I do think Shane being the GM is something to keep an eye on. And I do think that will impact the search. But I just look at this right now. The Giants in an alternate universe, if they had a competent defensive coordinator, we could be talking about this Giant team despite the injuries, despite all their flaws, despite everything. You look at those 5 games that they blew. If you win 3 of them, you're a 5-win football team at this point. Again, under 500, but you're not out of the playoff race. You can convince yourself that you are at least have a shot down the stretch. But instead, here we are with the New York Giants. And I just look at the timing of this. I always say this. Timing in this industry means a lot, and it says a lot. Why did this come out today with Josina Anderson? I think it's because it's clear that the Giants have some sort of interest and that there is interest from NFL teams. And look, that should also tell you what it says too about despite how bad it has been at UNC, that NFL teams would still take a shot. And I just look at it at the potential openings. I look at who's actively looking, because let's be honest, technically, there's only one team that is looking right now, and that's the Giants. Yes, they have Kafka as their interim. But let's be frank. How often does the interim stay? How likely do you think Kafka's going to be able to keep his job? And I'll give him credit. I think he's done a very good job as the interim. I think what's going to happen is he's going to be let go. He's going to be an offensive coordinator somewhere, but in the next round of coaching cycles, maybe even this offseason, maybe a year from now, people are going to say, hey, you know what? He has some head coaching experience. Even as an interim, he was able to get through it. He was able to do a decent job. Let's interview him for head coaching jobs. I just don't see him being the team's coach next year. I just don't see the organization where they are right now. I just don't see them having the patience. And I understand that there's connections to like Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Colts. But I keep going back to this. The Giants have tried the first-time head coach. Again, it would be a defensive coach there with Lou. I just look at Belichick, and I just think he can sell himself to the Giant ownership and to this front office better than any other coach can. Because the majority of these new head coaches are going to be first-time head coaches. The only exception I could maybe see is if Stefanski gets fired from Cleveland, or I see Mike McCarthy is available. But again, it doesn't seem like the Giants have a ton of interest. I also think Joe Shane doesn't want to hire like a Mike McCarthy because you know he's going to want a major say in personnel. So when I look at the Giants, maybe they're also that third team that was mentioned. If they decide to move on from Joe Shane, which is clearly a possibility, then Bill Belichick, I think, even has a stronger case. It's just interesting to me that, again, I know he's denied the coaching rumors, but keep in mind, too, what was going on around that time? There was the rumors that Dable was going to get fired. He hadn't been officially fired yet. Now that he's been let go, and you know the Giants are looking, Belichick, to me, like, it just seems like he can say, because the biggest issue on this team right now is fixing the defense. But at the same time, do you really want a first-time head coach and a defensive coach developing Jackson Dart? I just get the feeling that Belichick can go into that room, look those owners in the eyes, and say, look, I believe you have a franchise quarterback, and I believe I can help him develop. But even if you don't believe him, Belichick can go to them and say, I like Abdul Carter. I like this defense. I know with this personnel and with a couple more picks, I can make this a top 10 unit and we can close out games. It just seems too practical, doesn't it? And I just look around and I just go, there's not a ton of great candidates for the Giants. I just don't see a perfect place for this team to really address their needs. And look, I know you're going to get a lot of rumors with guys tied to Joe Schoen. But don't forget, too, this can continue to get ugly. I mean, let's be frank. The Giants right now have just 2 wins. And I look at the schedule. Do you think they're beating the Patriots next week in prime time? What if they get absolutely dog-walked by the Patriots in Foxborough? Then you got the Commanders, who, again, are not great. Then you got the Vikings or the Raiders. I mean, then you got the Cowboys, who will probably be playing for a playoff spot. It just seems like with this team, especially now with a new defensive coordinator calling the plays, how many wins are the Giants going to finish? And if they're a 4 or 5 win team, does that justify Joe Schoen keeping his job? Because I keep going back to this. I don't think Joe Schoen should get to be the one that decides the next head coach. I don't. Because I've learned from experience covering the Jets. That doesn't work. You need to have everyone on the same timeline. Because what if the Giants allow him to go through the draft, allow him to pick the head coach, and next year the roster doesn't look that much better? Well, does Schoen get to keep his job for another season, get to have another draft? And I just look back at the drafts with Joe Schoen. I look back at them and I look back at the 2025 draft. We all know about the hype around Abdul Carter. I even said I thought he was the best defensive player in the draft. But looking back now, would the Giants have been better off? And I made this argument. Would they have been better off trading Abdul Carter and getting multiple picks to help fill out a roster that had a ton of holes? And look, Abdul Carter, they've just given up a ton of draft capital and paid Brian Burns. You had Kayvon Thibodeau on this roster. And I said at the time, if you do make the decision to draft Abdul Carter, that's fine, but you better trade Kayvon Thibodeau to get other pieces. And they didn't. And I just kind of look back at the draft right now. I look especially at the top 15. And there's certain players I wonder, would they have been better, especially if you knew you were drafting a quarterback? I look at Will Campbell and I look at Armand Membu. Would they have helped this offensive line, which, again, has been okay this year? Would they have been better off trading down a couple spots and picking a Tet McMillan, who has 5 touchdown catches in Carolina? Would they have been better trading down a couple picks to take, a great tight end in Tyler Warren, who's looked incredible this year? You just look at the way they've addressed this team, and you just look at the draft. And even last year's draft, if the thing for Joe Schoen is, I'm the one that picked Jackson Dart. Well, yeah, you were, but let's be frank. Your head coach was basically pounding the table for them. And he was saying, I need this kid. So really the coach you fired was the one, and you got to keep him. And the big thing I look for here is you have to hit on your picks. And you also have to really, especially when you're picking in the top 5, you need to draft not only a good player, but a generational or a Pro Bowl caliber player. And I just look. Kayvon Thibodeau, 5th overall. 23.5 sacks. He's been a good pro. Do I think he's a top 5 player? No. Evan Neal, number 7. Not going to be on the Giants next year. Wan'Dale Robinson, okay, but at 43. Then you look at the defense. Dante Banks has been a disaster. John Michael Schmitz has not been a great pick. You look at the Tyler Nubin, Andrew Phillips, they've not been great players. And if the reason he got to keep this pick was because he picked Cam Scadaboo, I don't get it. I just look at this team and you look at the production. Abdul Carter has a half a sack. For comparison, your 65th pick, Darius Alexander, a D tackle, has 2.5. Abdul Carter has gotten pressures, but when you're picked as a top 5 pass rusher, like some of us, I thought he could be a potential rookie of the year candidate as a defensive player, and he hasn't had any impact. And now you hear about the stories of maybe he thinks he's better than he is. And this is one thing that's really going to happen now with a lot of kids. You look at the NIL, it's going to inflate a lot of egos because guys are going to say, look at what I'm getting paid in college. That must mean I'm really great and that I'm going to be great at the next level. And you look back at Abdul Carter, certain things now, when we look back, you go, I don't know. When he came out and said, I want to wear number 56. A little bit tone deaf there, buddy. I don't think that's a good idea. And then in the preseason, getting mollywopped by some offensive tackles and tight ends, and then reacting on social media. And now you got the rumors about him falling asleep in meetings. Well, I guess he's following in, his favorite player's footsteps, or the greatest giant ever. But the difference was Lawrence Taylor could sleep through any meeting, but he knew the defense, he knew his role, and he wreaked havoc every single week. And Abdul Carter is not doing that. But maybe there's a world where Bill Belichick convinces him, you know what, I can get more out of the corners. I'm great at developing corners. I can get more out of Abdul Carter. I think Jackson Dart is a good enough quarterback. I just look at the timing and I just look at everything coming together, and all of a sudden I'm going, I mean, round earth, I think there's a chance. I mean, think about this. The Giants have always talked about how much they respect Belichick. John Mara always talks about how much he respects Belichick and how much they are. And I look at this too. And again, I cover a lot of Jets and Giants on this channel. Again, I'm trying to do more Giants content because, again, there's a lot of great Giant fans out there, and they've asked me to do this content, and I enjoy doing it as well. I love to have as much NFL and football on this channel as I possibly can. But I just look back, and I just look at all the times, and I look really at Josina's Anderson statement today. And to me, there's so many buzzwords that I'm like, Giants. I'm like, it's making a little bit too much sense. And this is what, again, I'll reread her tweet. She was told at least 2 NFL teams are expected to have interest in Belichick. And again, I said, who are the top 2 teams looking right now? Well, it's the Giants, who don't have a head coach, and probably the Dolphins, who are going to fire theirs. I mean, maybe the Giants are into it now, but they could be, because she also said a third team could enter the mix, especially if one specific personnel change is made under ownership. Now, I took that as one of 2 things. That it could be the Raiders if they move a certain former Belichick quarterback out of the ownership group, but maybe that's also the Giants, where it's like, well, if Joe Shane's not there, maybe he'll have interest. And again, in her tweet, his own desires and preferences regarding workplace dynamics playing more in a part of it, I think, has been discussed. And at any rate, Belichick has the deepest respect from a number of owners across the league, and that's what matters. And I look at the owners. Of all the owners that are going to be hiring head coaches, now again, could the Raiders do it? I think the Raiders might be interested, but I'm not sure how much Tom Brady's going to endorse that. I look at the Cardinals. Do the Cardinals ownership have any ties to Belichick? The Bengals, they don't really have any. The Dolphins, I think, will, just because of the AFC East. But I just look at that. Respect from ownership. I don't think that there is a team in the NFL, maybe even the Patriots, that respect Bill Belichick, I feel, more than the New York Giants, because of what he's done for them as a coordinator and how much they respect him. Because, again, I think the Patriots obviously respect him for 6 Super Bowls, but I also think the way it ended in Foxborough in the last couple of years soured it a little bit. Again, I'll take it if I was able to get 6 Super Bowls in my lifetime. But anyways, I just look at those key buzzwords in there. I'm going, I just look at that, and I also look at it this way too. We look at Jerry Jones being aggressive. Jerry Jones feels like the clock is running out. He's getting up there in age. This is one thing I don't think a lot of Giant fans and people in the media are discussing is John Mara's sickness. It's mentioned on the broadcast all the time. It's mentioned now that he can't go to road games anymore with his health. And the Giants are the thing he loves the most. And again, I look at an owner that is doing things that is very aggressive, firing a head coach in the middle of the season. And I also look at someone that's getting a bit desperate. And I know Woody Johnson across town gets a lot of grief, but it's funny. I'm noticing a lot of parallels to the owner's meddling. And I also look at this year too. There was the report that after the Bronco game, they wanted to fire him, but cooler heads prevailed. But when it happened again, look what happened. He gets fired. Then look what happens again. Giants-Lions game, blow that lead late in the game. And they make Bowen the sacrificial lamb after that game. So I just look at this too. John Mara is getting older. He is sick. What to him is the best gamble for him to make the Giants as relevant as quickly as possible? Is it taking another shot on a OC or a DC that has no experience whatsoever? Or is it taking someone that has won 6 Super Bowls? And yes, the game has probably passed him by a lot, but he still has ties to the Giants organization. You know, you would hope his defenses are still great, and he has a young quarterback he can work with. I just look at Bill Belichick. The things, because let's be honest, if he shows up to an interview, he has something that no other coach is going to be able to flash, and that's 6 Super Bowl rings. No other coach is going to do that. Yeah, Mike McCarthy has one, but I also think Mike McCarthy isn't coming in to work with Joe Schoen because Joe Schoen has no ties to Mike McCarthy. And in some ways, I think Mike McCarthy is actually probably the best coaching option for the Giants next year. I really think he's a guy that has experience. He's a guy that works well with quarterbacks. And oh, by the way, you don't think he wants to shove it up the Cowboys and Jerry Jones's you-know-what's a little bit for how that was all handled? So I just look at this, though, and I just look at Belichick. And you don't think Belichick would also tell John Mara, wouldn't it be something if I came back here and we were able to turn it around before the Jets? I just can see him saying everything that this front office, this ownership group wants to hear. And let's be honest, John Mara is not looking for a 3-year rebuild. He's not looking for that. He wants the Giants to be back in postseason contention as soon as possible. And yes, there's a lot of baggage. Yes, there's a lot that comes with Bill Belichick now. But when you're looking around at future candidates, I think he's going to take what he thinks is the best shot with the most experience. And yes, there's some baggage and some interesting baggage that now comes with Bill Belichick. But you have to look at it this way. They want to be relevant again. They want to do it as quickly as possible. And to do that, you need an experienced head coach. And I just look at the timing. That to me is the most important thing. And that's how I'm going to end this tonight is I look at the timing. Why is this coming out now? It's coming out less than 24 hours after the Giants fired their DC very publicly. It's coming less than 48 hours after another embarrassing defensive collapse by the New York Giants. And oh, by the way, what week is it for the Giants? That's right. It's Monday Night Football. And who, pray tell, do the Giants play on Monday Night Football? Oh, that's right. It would be the New England Patriots in primetime. And what happens if the Patriots embarrass the Giants in primetime? What happens then when it looks like they don't have the right coach? I just look at everything. Bill Belichick, we know one thing. He is a master manipulator behind the scenes. I just look at this right now, and again, they'll wait till the end of the season to make a move, but I just look at the timing. This just reeks from the Belichick camp. It's when the Giants are vulnerable. It's clear the Giants are looking for a head coach. It's clear Giant fans do not like the idea of Joe Schoen coming back. But also it's the week where the Giants are going to be playing the Patriots on Monday Night Football. You don't think Belichick's going to get a name drop in there somehow? What if perchance, I could see this potentially happening? What if Bill Belichick just happens to be at the game? I mean, it's a Monday night game. The college season at that point will be over. Maybe he somehow finds his way into the Giants box, or maybe he just finds his way to Foxborough somehow to just, casually enjoy the game. I'm just saying, if you see Bill Belichick somewhere around that game on Monday night, or you hear his name mentioned, I just feel like this is just, again, not saying that the Giants will hire Belichick, but I think at the very least, can I at least expect that they're going to interview him at some point? I just get the feeling with his background, with what he's done with the organization, how much he's respected by the Mara family, he's at the very, very least going to get a head coaching interview with the Giants. I would be shocked if he doesn't get an interview with the Giants. I really would. Because don't forget, when he left the Patriots, Brian Daboll was still the head coach here. And even at that time, I still thought maybe the Giants might talk to him. But it looked like they were out of respect for Daboll, didn't want to do it. But I'm just saying, keep an eye out. And I think that if we continue to hear this rumor over the next couple weeks, I think it's going to get louder. I do think it's going to be talked about. I do think Belichick is going to put out feelers and say, you know what, I'm more of an NFL coach. I'd love to get back in the league. And I just look at all the places. There really isn't a good fit for Belichick, for what he wants, where he's comfortable, having a young quarterback that's already in-house. The one team where it just feels like checks every box, where what Belichick wants, but also a team that would take the risk on Belichick, it just seems like too many things are matching with both sides. And look, maybe the Giants don't interview Belichick. Maybe the Giants aren't interested in Belichick. Maybe. That's certainly possible. But just look at how this is developing. And I just look at how things are lining up. And it just seems like there's too much smoke, not for this rumor to have a little bit of fire underneath it. That's going to do it for this episode of Rich Sports Talk. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our latest great sports coverage. And make sure, if you like to take us on the go, we're available wherever podcasts are available. If you weren't able to join us the live stream, no worries. Make sure to comment below, and I'll do my best to answer your question. If you have ideas for future videos or topics you'd like cover, hey, let me know in the chat. I love listening to your feedback because, again, you guys help make this a great and phenomenal channel. So make sure to share us so we can get that YouTube algorithm out there to great more sports fans and NFL fans to come and join the channel. Until next time, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this has been Rich Sports Talk.